If you're tired of feeling confused by women, tired of mixed signals, tired of doing everything right only to end up ignored or replaced, you need to hear this. The problem isn't that she switched up. The problem is that no one ever taught you how women actually operate emotionally. You're using logic to decode feelings, words to interpret behavior, and hope to explain inconsistency. And that's why you keep losing your power. But there's a way out of this loop, a way to finally understand the emotional patterns behind everything she does. And once you see those patterns, you stop getting played instantly. Stay with me because this is the one truth every man must learn. Men don't get blindsided because they're foolish. They get blindsided because they walk into a woman's emotional world carrying the tools of logic, expecting the two to match. You live in a framework where facts dictate reality. But for women, emotion shapes reality. And until you understand that, you'll always be negotiating with a version of the truth that shifts the moment her internal weather changes. Here's what most men never see. When a woman feels something, that feeling becomes her truth in that moment. Not because she's dishonest, but because emotional truth is the lens she uses to translate her experiences. Emotion arrow, narrative arrow, behavior. That is the sequence. And unless you learn to read the emotional layer first, every narrative she gives you will confuse you. Take a simple example. A man hears a woman say, "I love you," and he holds on to those words like a contract. He assumes permanence, reliability, a fixed truth. But he ignores the behavior that slowly turns distant, shorter responses, colder tone, less effort. He argues with the behavior by clinging to the words, and that's why he gets hurt. Not because she deceived him, but because he refused to notice the shift in emotional truth that happened long before she said anything. Out loud. A woman's feelings are real to her even when they aren't stable. That's not a flaw. It's simply the way her emotional system operates. Fluid, responsive, tied to context. The mistake men make is treating her words as if they were laws of physics instead of reflections of her internal state at that specific moment. When her feelings change, her version of the truth changes with them. You may think, but she said she'd never leave. Yes, she meant it when she felt it, but emotional truth has an expiration date you can't predict. Not because she's malicious, because she's emotional. When you grasp this distinction, everything becomes clearer. Most men suffer because they attach themselves to what she says instead of what she shows. They interpret verbal commitment as consistency and overlook the behavioral drift that always tells the real story. That's why confusion becomes heartbreak. You followed the script. You ignored the pattern. Start thinking differently. Stop decoding her sentences. Start decoding her emotional patterns. Behavior is the trail. Emotion is the engine behind it. If you want clarity with women, you must learn to see the emotional shift before it becomes a behavioral consequence. Once you understand emotional truth, you stop taking things personally and you stop getting blindsided. You become the kind of man who observes instead of reacts, who sees the emotional current instead of drowning in it. And from that moment on, you stop getting played by illusions and start navigating reality. Most men think a woman tests them to create drama. They assume it's manipulation, attention-seeking, or some kind of emotional game. But that's not how female psychology works. A woman's tests are rarely intentional. They're instinctual. They're woven into how she evaluates safety, strength, and emotional reliability. She's not trying to break you. She's trying to feel you. A woman tests because she needs to know something you can't express through words, whether your emotional foundation is stable, whether you're truly the man you appear to be, whether your confidence holds under pressure, whether your presence is real or just a performance. She measures this not by what you say, but by how you respond when the situation stops being comfortable. Think of it this way: women don't test your patience. They test your center of gravity. Imagine a disagreement. She raises her voice, gets emotional, or pushes a boundary. Not because she planned to, but because something in her wants to see the truth beneath your surface. Your reaction becomes the data she uses to assess your emotional stability index. Do you snap? Do you over-explain? Do you retreat into silence and resentment? Or do you stay grounded, calm, and unaffected by the emotional spike in front of you? She doesn't test you to break you. She tests you to see if you already break yourself, and most men do. They either over-explain, trying to convince her of their worth, which only signals insecurity. Get angry, proving they can't regulate their emotions. Start begging, revealing fear of loss and lack of self-respect. Each of these reactions communicates one thing: instability. And when she senses instability, trust erodes. Attraction follows right behind it. A test isn't an attack, it's emotional feedback. It's her subconscious asking, can I trust your leadership when my emotions are chaotic? Will you stay steady when I can't? She doesn't want you to dominate her. She wants to feel that you won't collapse when her feelings fluctuate. When you fail a test, she doesn't lose interest because she's crazy or because women are impossible. She loses interest because your reaction told her something your words never would, that you can't hold emotional tension. And a man who can't hold emotional tension becomes a man she can't relax into. But when you treat her tests as information instead of insults, the entire dynamic changes. You stop reacting, you start observing, you respond from strength instead of defensiveness. You show her not through speeches, but through presence, that you're not shaken by temporary turbulence. Pass a woman's tests and you don't just earn her trust, you earn her respect. And respect is the root of attraction that lasts. Men get played not because women are master manipulators, but because men are loyal to language in a world where language is the least reliable signal. Words are the theater, behavior is the truth, and the sooner you stop treating her sentences like signed contracts, the sooner you stop getting blindsided by the reality her actions have been showing you all along. Here's the mistake almost every man makes. He listens too literally. When a woman speaks, she's often expressing her current emotional state, not a long-term strategic plan. But when she behaves, she's revealing her patterns, those deep, consistent behaviors that don't shift with mood changes. A woman can polish her presentation. She can refine her tone, shape her narrative, and tell you exactly what she thinks will maintain harmony. But what she cannot fake is long-term consistency. Think about the psychological truth behind this. Self-presentation bias means people naturally curate how they appear, especially in romantic contexts. Add romantic projection, your desire to see her as who you hope she is rather than who she's showing you. And suddenly, you're no longer in a relationship with a woman. You're in a relationship with your own imagination. Picture this. She tells you she wants something serious. She talks about commitment. She says she's tired of games, but she cancels plans last minute, stays vague about her availability, keeps old romantic options warm, or only invests effort when she feels lonely. The story is one thing, the pattern is another. And here's the truth you need to absorb. A woman can fake interest, but she can't fake consistency. If she's genuinely invested, you'll see it. Her attention deepens, her energy leans in, her decisions align with her words. The woman who wants you will move toward you, not just talk toward you. 5 behavioral signs always reveal the truth more than words. Consistent effort without you prompting, respect for your time and boundaries, emotional availability without volatility, reliability in communication, a genuine desire to integrate you into her life. If these are missing, it doesn't matter what she says. You're clinging to theater while ignoring the script her actions are writing. Here's the blind spot most men never confront. You believe her words because you want to. You want the relationship to be real. You want her promises to mean something. You want her sweet moments to define the whole story. But desire doesn't change reality. Behavior does. Once you shift your attention from her vocabulary to her patterns, the entire dynamic transforms. Confusion disappears. Drama loses its power. You stop chasing clarity she already gave you through action, and suddenly you operate differently. Not as a man hoping for truth, but as a man who reads it. Understanding behavior over words doesn't make you cold. It makes you unplayable. Logic is a language men trust. Emotion is the language women feel. And when the two collide, the man who insists on logic always loses to the man who understands emotional gravity. Emotional gravity is not manipulation. It is the strength of a man's internal center, his ability to influence the emotional tone of a relationship without raising his voice, defending himself endlessly, or chasing validation he doesn't need. In male-female dynamics, logic doesn't create attraction. Emotional experience does. A woman doesn't stay because the facts make sense. She stays because the feeling makes sense. And the men who create that feeling aren't the ones who argue the best. They're the ones who hold their frame when emotions rise. So, what exactly is emotional gravity? It's the pull a man creates when he's in full command of his own energy, when he doesn't mirror her chaos, when he doesn't abandon himself to regulate her mood, when he remains grounded, steady, and anchored even when the emotional temperature spikes. Imagine a moment of conflict. She raises her voice, her frustration spills out. She's emotional, expressive, overwhelmed. Most men react instantly. They debate, defend, or explode. They escalate the moment because they feel pulled into her emotional current. But a man with emotional gravity chooses differently. He doesn't argue. He doesn't shrink. He doesn't rush to fix her emotional state. He simply withdraws his reactive energy and lets the moment breathe. And something remarkable happens. The dynamic shifts. Her emotional escalation loses power because he isn't feeding it. She feels the contrast. She feels the steadiness, and she recalibrates. If she controls your emotional state, she controls the entire relationship. This is why so many men feel powerless. They hand over their stability in exchange for her approval. The moment she becomes upset, they lose their center. The moment she withdraws affection, they panic. The moment she challenges them, they crumble. Emotional gravity breaks that cycle. 3 signs a man holds emotional gravity. He responds slowly, not impulsively, measured, calm, intentional. He protects his energy. He doesn't explain himself just to soothe her anxiety. He sets the emotional tone. His composure regulates the space instead of her volatility controlling it. When you operate from emotional gravity, she feels something she rarely experiences. A man who cannot be knocked off balance, a man she can lean into, a man she subconsciously respects because he isn't shaped by her mood. Men lose power when they react. They gain power when they maintain presence. Women aren't drawn to emotional chaos. They're drawn to emotional leadership. And the man who masters emotional gravity doesn't just stop getting played. He becomes the gravitational center of the relationship, the one she instinctively aligns with. Most men think strength means feeling nothing. They believe shutting down, becoming distant, or suppressing emotion is the path to power. But that isn't strength. That's avoidance wearing a masculine mask. The men who truly cannot be played aren't the ones who stop caring. They're the ones who learn how to channel their emotions without letting those emotions run them. Emotional discipline is the real separator. When a man doesn't understand his own emotional triggers, he becomes easy to manipulate, not because women intentionally try to manipulate him, but because any person who lacks self-mastery becomes reactive. And a reactive man is predictable. A predictable man is controllable. That's why emotional volatility is the biggest liability in male-female dynamics. Picture this. Tension rises, voices increase, the air thickens. One man snaps, raises his tone, and spirals into defensiveness. Another man pleads, over-explains, hoping to sue her back into connection. Both men lose their center. Both men hand over their power. And both confirm to her subconscious that they cannot hold emotional weight. Now imagine a different man in the same moment. The emotional intensity escalates, yet he remains grounded. He listens without absorbing the chaos. He responds without rushing. He holds himself not to dominate her, but to stay aligned with who he is. His calm isn't coldness, it's competence. And the moment she feels that steadiness, something inside her shifts. Her nervous system relaxes. Her respect deepens. Her perception of him transforms. Composure is the quiet form of dominance women respect the most. Women don't feel safe with a man who suppresses emotion. They feel safe with a man who can experience emotion and still stay centered. That's why mastery, not numbness, is the real strength. There are patterns of failure men fall into when they get pulled into emotional turbulence, reacting instantly instead of pausing, explaining themselves excessively, matching her intensity instead of grounding it, taking her mood as a personal attack, trying to fix everything instead of leading with clarity. Each of these reactions communicates insecurity, fear, or instability. But emotional mastery changes that. Emotional mastery means you can feel frustration without erupting. You can feel hurt without collapsing. You can feel tension without needing immediate resolution. You can feel love without losing boundaries. You can feel disappointment without compromising self-respect. This is the difference between detachment and withdrawal. Withdrawal is fear. Detachment is clarity. One creates distance, the other creates respect. When you master your emotions, you remove every handle someone could pull to control you. You become difficult to manipulate because nothing external determines your internal state. And when a woman sees that your emotional balance doesn't depend on her approval, her reactions, or her affection, she doesn't just feel attraction, she feels trust. A man who owns his emotions is a man who cannot be played. Men don't get played because women are too complicated. Men get played because they refuse to see women clearly. They see potential, they see fantasy, they see the version of her they want her to be. And when reality doesn't match the idealized image they created, they blame her instead of recognizing the illusion was theirs from the start. A woman is not your enemy. She is not your savior. She is not the perfect, flawless creature you imagine when chemistry is high and your guard is down. She is human, emotional, shifting, responsive, intuitive, and when you stop idealizing women, you stop expecting them to behave like the characters in the stories you project onto them. She is not here to complete you. She is here to reflect you. Imagine a man who finally begins to notice patterns instead of promises. He pays attention to how he feels around her, not just how she makes him feel in select moments. He sees when the dynamic drains him. He recognizes when her words don't align with her behavior. He stops negotiating with red flags disguised as potential, and for the first time, he stops losing himself in the connection. He doesn't become cynical. He becomes clear. The moment you stop idealizing women is the moment you stop getting played. This shift isn't about distrust. It's about discernment. It's the difference between seeing a woman as she is and seeing her as you hope she is. When you choose clarity over fantasy, you operate from strength instead of longing. You make decisions that reinforce your standards instead of eroding them. And once clarity clicks, 5 principles become unshakable inside you. Emotional truth. Her feelings dictate her reality. Testing. She unconsciously measures your stability. Behavioral data. Patterns reveal what words hide. Emotional gravity. Leadership comes from inner calm. Composure. Control of self equals resilience. These aren't tactics. These are mindsets. A man who internalizes these principles no longer tries to control a woman's reactions. He controls his own. He no longer chases consistency. He evaluates it. He no longer tries to impress. He embodies presence. And in that shift, something powerful happens. He stops hoping for respect and starts commanding it. When you stop idealizing, you stop overinvesting. You stop over-explaining. You stop overlooking what's right in front of you. You start seeing the emotional system women operate from, and you navigate it with clarity instead of confusion. Women don't want you blind. They want you grounded. Because a grounded man is a man who leads not with force, but with presence. When you see the game, you play it differently, not to win against her, but to win back yourself. At the end of all of this, here's the truth you need to hold on to. You can't control a woman's emotions. You can't predict them. You can't stabilize them. And you don't need to. What you can control, what you must control, is the way you respond to them. That is where your power lives. Not in the relationship, not in her validation, not in her approval, but in your ability to stay rooted in who you are when her world becomes stormy. Look at yourself for a moment. Not the version of you she sees, not the version you perform, the real version. Are you a man led by reactions or a man led by intention? Do you bend the moment tension appears, or do you remain grounded enough for someone else to lean on you? Every dynamic you've struggled with traces back to this mirror, this quiet reflection of how well you've mastered your own emotional landscape. A woman can only play the version of you that refuses to grow. When you understand how women operate, emotionally, you stop interpreting every shift as rejection. You stop taking every mood personally. You stop fighting her waves and start learning how to stand still beneath them. Suddenly, conversations become clearer. Boundaries stop shaking. Patterns appear where confusion once lived. You stop living inside the theater of words and finally see the structure underneath, the behaviors, the signals, the emotional truths that were always there. If this message hit something inside you, if it clarified even one pattern you've been lost in, make sure you subscribe, like the video, share it, drop a comment, not for me, but for yourself. Because this journey, this leveling up of emotional strength, clarity, and presence is the kind of work every man deserves to master. And once you learn to navigate women with this kind of awareness, you don't just stop getting played, you start living with a power you can finally trust.